Megan Fox has the story.
Megan Fox.
Megan Fox.
Megan Fox.
Megan Fox. Megan Fox, a national journalist.
Mastodon. I will never be able to say that.
It feels like the Flintstones live there.
It does.
Well, don't trust women. I think you just touched on that with your last. That's what they brought. We're going to have to bring back chaperones.
Jesus, no.
Just careful. Stop! Break! Ooh. Hard right.
How did you screw up a stove, Megan? You're a woman. I thought that was baked into you, like at the genetic level, how to operate kitchen equipment.
And honestly, Megan, if you don't like it, I'm sorry. I've been very nice to you.
You get Dino hanging out outside chewing on a large bone. I highly recommend being targeted by the New York Times and Rolling Stone for weight loss. And I'd say, keep it coming. I need to lose 20 more. Please, keep it coming.
Explain to me, Megan, why did this country not have a holiday once a year? That's the time you vote. If you don't show up and vote, up your ass. You don't get another chance. You don't get, I don't care if you're in the hospital. Crawl to the stake, crawl there. But that's it. One day, 12 hours, and then you're done. And you count them that day, and that night you know who the hell was.
I will eat you alive. You want to tangle? You want to go?
The only thing going through my head is, what are you going to do when Megan Fox runs wild on you, brother?
He made a deal with the devil. She's the devil.
He wants that.
Oh, God. Gross! Oh! All right. Penalty box for slug. Yep.
Of a mile.
Are you ready to behave yourself now, slug?
This frustrating rep.
Are you ready to behave yourself? Repossessed puppies? I'm hiding pork chop! ASAP! Have you seen his little pork chop? Oh my god, pork chop is the cutest.
That sounds bad.
Have you seen it?
Pork is pork.
Though you may be tempted, do not contact any person or persons mentioned on this stream. Do not even think about contacting anyone who may be the topic of the daily news. If you should do that, the host will question your IQ, possibly call you names, and mock you for disobeying these basic rules of decency.
All the best.
Good morning, everyone. We have amazing news. Welcome back to the show. I'm Megan Fox, medium smart journalist, and sometimes good things happen. We cover these stories of tragedy and upset a lot of the time on this channel, including the Hernandez family, the Timms family, all these families in Georgia who have suffered medical kidnappings at the hands of fraudulent child abuse pediatricians. And today, it actually happened last week, but they were found, the Hernandez family, you remember Matt and Tucky, were found not guilty by a jury of their peers, and they are free to be with their children. Well, there's a couple of details we have to get into, and I do have a guest to talk about that today. But first, let's bring up the live reaction of Matt and Tucky after their court hearing, and hear how that went. Yep. We need volume, though. Volume would be helpful. If you could hear it, that would be great. Let's try that again.
Setting in. It's
still shocked.
It's just good to know that there's still some justice. They tried so hard to not allow these jurors to get any information from our witnesses, and we still won.
A lot of information was left out. I'm so scared because they cannot hear everything and all the truth from our expert and witnesses want to speak up for us, but they've been blocked. And that's what I'm afraid of. That's what I'm scared.
It's not having access to 1 million industrial-grade products. It's so amazing.
No ads. We don't want that. Okay. And now coming up to the stage with us is Jennifer Williams. Jennifer Williams used to be the foster parent for the Hernandez children who blew the whistle on this horrific scandal. Jennifer, welcome back.
Yay.
This is such great news.
Yes, this is amazing news. We are so excited. We are so excited.
I mean, what you went to the trial every day. I mean, I don't even know where to start with this. You were there every day, and we have multiple trials that you were attending kind of at the same time. Was it the Timms family that was also on trial at the same time?
No, it started March 3rd for the Timms, and it ended April 3rd.
Okay, and their verdict was?
Not guilty.
Not guilty. Yeah. All right.
Yes. We've had some good wins here lately. We've had some really good wins.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so tell me about the Hernandez family. We interviewed Matt on this program, and it broke my heart. This man was mourning the loss of his child. For a quick recap, his children were taken away from him and his wife, Tucky, who's an immigrant to this country. English is not her first language, which has made this whole situation so much more difficult. And they were taken because they took the baby to the hospital because she had a swollen leg that they couldn't explain and didn't know why. And they were immediately diagnosed with child abuse with no further digging, no looking into what else it could be. And of course, it turns out that the baby had vitamin D deficiency. She had, Emma had easily breakable bones because of that vitamin D deficiency, possibly rickets. We don't know. There's just like did they ever get a diagnosis of what this really was besides the vitamin D deficiency?
Yeah, the biggest thing that the doctors for the defense is the vitamin D deficiency and just a metabolic bone disease because of that vitamin D deficiency, along with multiple genetic variants that are known to cause bone problems. So a whirlwind of issues for one little baby.
So and if you want to catch up on the details of this case, I have linked in the description of this video my article on pjmedia.com that goes into all the details of how this baby was removed and why, and the hoops that the DCF in Georgia had put this poor family through. They even separated mom and dad, made them move out from each other, could not be together because they were considered witnesses against one another. It was insane, making her live, somewhere else away from her house, taking the baby away from the aunt and uncle, claiming that because the baby had bruises still, not that it was a medical disorder maybe, but that they allowed her mother to come to the house and continue to abuse her. That's what DCF said. It's so laughable. It is so stupid but you can't believe when these government people get a hold of you, what they can do. But she was still having these problems in foster care. Even the caregivers, the daycare was reporting it. So what I want to know, because now that they've been found not guilty, and we all knew they weren't guilty, that was obvious.
Yeah.
Tell me about the trial. You had so much to say. You and I have been communicating by email through this whole thing. And I have been praying for them and rooting for you guys and feeling so helpless because we can't be in there and we couldn't see what was going on. But you have so much to say about that trial. So take me back to the first day of trial. What was that like? How were you feeling? What happened?
Okay. So before their trial even began, which was May 12th, they had a pre-trial Dalbert hearing. So a Dalbert hearing is to try and exclude certain expert witnesses. And the state of Georgia, District Attorney Caroline Yee, who was under Penny Penn, as you remember her name, no one can forget Penny Penn name.
Penny Penn, yeah.
They wanted they wanted to exclude every single medical doctor that Matt and Tucky wanted to testify, all of them.
But they wanted to keep their own medical doctors, right?
Well, of course.
Right.
So
under what grounds? On what grounds were they trying to get rid of their doctors?
So there's under Georgia code, there's 4 different things that you can use. And I'm just going to kind of paraphrase. It could be, they're not an expert that has anything to do with this case. What they're going to testify to is not relevant to this case. So Georgia law has these 4 things, but none of these doctors fell under that. They all had something to say specifically about Emma and her health condition. So that was a 2-day trial that we went to. And what happened for the Dalbert hearing was the state allowed every one of their doctors and all of their DA people, so Stephen Mesner, every CHOA doctor that wanted to be in, signed in online and listened to the entire Dalbert hearing.
No.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
And I'm sure that their doctors weren't allowed to do the same thing.
I mean, it was never invited. Like, no one ever said, hey, we're going to have our doctors on if the defense wants to have theirs. So no, the defense was not expecting such nonsense. And this was Catherine Bernard's, I'm going to try not to jump too much, but this was Catherine Bernard's first time in front of this judge. This was Matt's attorney. She was also Carrie Tim's attorney.
Oh, interesting. It's good that the attorneys, though, are familiar with both cases because there have to be so many similarities and similar, same doctors, etc. That's got to be helpful.
It was very helpful, and it was very amazing to watch. So in the Dalbert hearing, we had 4 doctors that we wanted to be able to testify to Emma. 3 of those doctors were approved. 1 was not approved. And the reason he was not approved is he's in the Netherlands.
I find that to be so crap, by the way.
Yes.
Yes. We're throwing your doctor out because he's from a different country. Hello, racist. Yeah. That's all I have to say to that. Like, why are you such a bigot?
Yes. Caroline Yee said to the judge, and she talks like a 12-year-old mean girl, like just like really whiny and throws her hands around a lot. And she said, Your Honor, I want to testify people. I want to cross-examine people in front of me. I want them right there in front of me. So because of that, the judge is like, okay, she doesn't want any virtual.
But were there any virtual witnesses after that?
No.
No, they had them all in person. But that is not right. Just because the prosecutor doesn't want to doesn't mean they shouldn't have to if the doctor can't be here from the Netherlands. Hello. And that particular doctor was a very, very qualified specialist, right?
Yes.
Very specified. What was the specialty of that doctor? Do you remember?
Yeah, so he's a PhD in research. He created his own genetic lab, and he runs his own genetic lab. So he's not a board certified geneticist, but he has been doing this for, I don't even know how many years Dr. Pauls has been doing this, but he runs his own lab. So he had information. He had information that hardly anybody has on the bone disorders and things like that, correct? On how they are mistaken for abuse. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. So he got to testify in the Tim's trial, and we can bounce kind of between because these trials were so weirdly opposite as far as like the demeanor of the courtroom, the judge. Really? Oh my goodness gracious, yes. The judge in Gordon County was every person's dream judge. She is the kind of judge that would do amazing things in America. She's fair.
What's her name?
Suzanne Smith. She's in Gordon County jurisdiction, Superior Court.
I'll look her up. Hey, when you find a good judge, it's very important that people know who they are because judges are, for the most part, elected. And if there's a re-election coming up, and if Judge Smith is somebody who's a good judge, then people in Gordon County need to know, re-elect Susan Smith.
Yeah.
Right? That's her name, Susan Smith, Gordon County.
Suzanne.
Sorry, you're right. Suzanne. She's young. She's young.
Yeah, she is young. And she's beautiful, and she is eloquent, and she's just so fair. Man, she was such a fair, amazing judge. She was just so great, and it was the complete opposite of who the Hernandez family had to deal with. And Catherine Bernard.
This is her, right?
No.
That's not her? That's the picture that came up under her. Isn't that strange?
I did find one at one point of her.
She doesn't have her picture is not listed on the Gordon County one.
I don't think it is. No.
I don't know why they do that, because people need to know who they are so they can vote for them, etc. They should, but
Yes.
anyway, if you are in Gordon County, make sure that you know about Judge Smith, because you need to vote yes. You need to vote
Absolutely. Yes.
retain. I love fair judges. So what stood out to you as far as fair? When you say that she was so fair, was she? How did that come across to you in the courtroom?
Well, she followed the law, for one.
Fancy that.
That was really nice. She was very respectful to both sides. She was very respectful to witnesses. She was very respectful to the jury. Just the way she handled the courtroom. Now, she demanded respect, like the whole, we don't want cell phones, which I agree with. They don't want people videoing and recording. I totally get that.
Right.
But she was very respectful about it. Her bailiffs in the room were extremely kind, and they did not treat Brady and Carrie like criminals. They did not treat their supporters like criminals. They were very funny. They were happy. They were just kind. Like, they demanded respect, but it was a nice atmosphere. I never got a headache when I was in Gordon County trial. It was very entertaining, Megan, and not at Brady and Carrie's expense at all, because this is not a funny situation.
Uh-oh. Did we lose you? You froze for a minute there, Jennifer. All right. Jennifer appears to have frozen.
Am I back?
You're back. You're back. Okay. You said it was very entertaining.
Yeah,
and
it was entertaining, and that is not at Brady and Carrie's expense, because this is not a funny situation at all. But their attorneys, Jason Hood was Brady's attorney, Catherine Bernard is Carrie's attorney. They worked so beautifully together, and they tore into the prosecutor's witnesses. I mean, Stephen Mesner, Verena Brown didn't have a chance with them. And that's a big part of the judge also. She allowed the defense team to bring up everything important. And we can talk about what happened with Judge Dickinson in Forsyth County, who literally tried to exclude really important information from the jury. So in Gordon County, everything was allowed to be talked about that was appropriate to the case. And that's huge, right? Like, jury need to hear the truth.
It makes a huge difference. Listen, a judge in a case can make the difference between a guilty and a not guilty verdict. And we're seeing it in the Karen Reed case. That judge is working as hard as she possibly can to give the Commonwealth a win, keeping things out that shouldn't be out. All the prosecution's witnesses get in, but the defenses don't. It's not okay. That is not the way justice is supposed to work. Now, were there cameras in both courtrooms as far as the documentary that, okay, so we are going to get to see this at some point?
Yes. Wait, I don't know why the link's not up yet. So Jeb Kicker with Prop X Productions had reached out to You Are the Power, over a year ago. He filed, what is it? It's not Chapter 22. I forget what it's called. Maybe it is Chapter 22, where you request to have cameras in the room. So he did this. Rebecca with 11 Alive also did that for the Hernandez trial. So she was in there almost every day. But Jeb Kicker was in there for both trials every day. The only rule was, if the judge is not on the bench, no recording. But as soon as the judge is on the bench, recording was allowed. And this is huge, because it's going to help a lot of other families to have, for their defense attorneys to see how awesome these defense attorneys did and to see what needed to be used. A huge thing that happened in the Timms trial, Catherine Bernard argued for Stephen Mesner and Verena Brown not to be allowed to be tendered as child abuse pediatricians. She argued that that is a legal term, and that's why we're here. So if you paint a picture to the jury that this is a abuse specialist, which is a legal term, not a medical term, it paints an unfair picture. And Suzanne Smith, Judge Suzanne Smith, agreed with that. So they were not tendered as child abuse pediatricians.
Wow.
They were tendered as pediatricians with like subspecialty in child abuse.
Interesting.
Yes.
That's really good. What did they get the same designation in the Hernandez case or no?
I mean, she
No.
put in the argument, but absolutely. It wasn't even thought about for 2 seconds. It was like denied immediately.
Wow.
So
wow.
Very, very night and day. I will say that it's a terrifying feeling to be in a courtroom with people you love. My kids came every day. They love Brady and Carrie, so they came. And it's a very terrifying feeling to know, have the truth presented, and you're still waiting on that jury. In this case, we were sitting in the gallery, and we were just waiting for a knock on the door. And once that knock came, the bailiff would go, and maybe it's a question, which they did have at one point. And then later, it was a knock on the door, and they had a verdict. It's a very scary feeling because you know the truth. And in this case, in the Tims, the truth was presented very well by the defense team. But it's still terrifying because you're about to find out, and the bailiffs kind of come a little closer, and there might be an extra 1 or 2 that are in there. That happened in the Hernandez trial where they come in, I guess, ready to just attack the defendants. It was really creepy how they did that. So it's just a scary thing to know.
Yeah,
like,
they do that. They do that.
I don't like it. It's very
I don't like it either.
uncomfortable.
It's very intimidating. They did that at the Cynthia Absug trial. They sent in like 6 or 7 police officers to surround her, like they were going to drag her off to jail.
Yeah.
And it was just
It's an
brutal.
uncomfortable feeling. Yeah. But for the Tims, I don't really remember noticing any extra bailiffs. And the judge read their verdict, and it was just, you have to wait because they had 4 charges each. So of course you have to wait for all 4. Actually for the Tims, they had 4. She threw 1 out on direct verdict motion by the defense team. The defense team, when the state rested, asked for a direct verdict. So one of those charges, which was, I think, battery with Family Violence Act added. So it's like a battery charge with Family Violence Act. So that was charge 1, and it was thrown out immediately by direct verdict, which was really good. So the jury only had 3 charges to consider for Brady and Carrie. And you have to wait for each one. We, the jury, find Brady Lee not guilty. You can't get excited.
Right.
Until all of it's just over. What a weird feeling. What a weird situation. And it was just such a blessing that day. It was a beautiful day.
And were the Tims allowed to go directly back with their children after that? Have they been reunited?
They left the courthouse to go get Jameson. Yeah. Because Jameson, the DFACS case was closed. Juvenile case was closed. Brady's parents had custody of Jameson, and it was at their discretion what to do next. And of course, they let him go home. So Brady does have a son from a previous relationship. There's still some things that are a little bit different because it's a different court orders and such. But for Jameson, he got to go home immediately, and it was just amazing.
What about the so in the Hernandez case, you said it was so different. It was so hostile.
Yes.
And so much was kept out. And yet they still got a not guilty verdict across all counts. Were they able, I know there's a different update there as far as them being together with their children. What's going on there? Is DCF still not dropped their case, or what's going on?
You know, it's a really confusing bunch of hogwash is what it is. But Heather Dunn, the juvenile judge, a year ago, when Tony and Tuck, the aunt and uncle, got the kids, the judge put in her court order, and I'm going to paraphrase again, but put in her court order, you don't get your kids. We don't change visitation. No matter what happens in criminal, you come before me in this courtroom before anything changes.
It's crazy.
I mean, that's literally what it is. It's you don't get different visitation. Nothing changes until you come before my throne.
Oh my God. So they still have to go in front of her.
Now, I'm hoping that attorneys along with an uncle can request things to be changed via paperwork, and then they can go before her for custody change. So Tony and Tuck have the girls, and we would love, they're going to give the girls back, but you have to go before the juvenile judge for that. But what we would like is for her to drop all restrictions and just let the girls, like the girls could spend the night with me. The girls can spend the night with a friend. They can spend the night with people. That's not the issue. It's they can't with their own parents because of this court order. And it just shows you how evil she is, because she could have easily said, hey, when criminal charges are resolved, that will null and void all of my orders. You know what I mean? Like, you can do whatever you want, but she chose it.
Yes, that's the way it should have been. Yes. Obviously. Because it doesn't make any sense. If you're charged with child abuse and that's why they're keeping you from your children, and then you get found not guilty, well, then you're not guilty of that child abuse.
Yes.
And the kids should come back immediately.
Yes.
So how long until they get in front of the juvenile judge?
So it's already on the calendar for June 10th, which is far away.
Oh, God.
I mean, that's far away when you've beat the hardest. You've beat the criminal charges and you're innocent. You're a free person with nothing hanging over your head. It's just gross. And I really hope that they can get things changed so that's the restriction. Because right now, they are allowed up to the minimum one paid supervised visit. They still have to pay a supervisor to do a visit. They can have up to 2 of those. The other thing that was approved in the summer, was they have a family friend who was recognized by the court as being allowed to do a visit once a week up to 4 hours. These minimum timeframes are just they're insane, as if after 4 hours you're going to start abusing your kid. It's just,
especially after a jury has found you not guilty of child abuse. Like it doesn't make any sense that the juvenile court wouldn't just give you your kids back.
Yes, it's stupid. And we're trying to be positive because this is something to celebrate. We are ecstatic, but Matt and Tucky are still going home to an empty home.
Which is insane.
Yes, it's wrong is what it is. But Megan, this trial was so uncomfortable and so terrifying because, and I'm going to explain it. This is what the judge and the DA were doing together. So everyone knows Matt and Tucky are in this position because DFACS, CPS, claims they don't have a plausible explanation for Emma's injuries, right?
Right.
The parents ask for testing. They ask for genetic testing to find out what's going on with Emma. It's denied for over almost a year. It's denied by the state of Georgia. Like, no, we're not doing any of that, right? So Tucky ends up doing a sneaky swab on her own daughter. That gets brought up in court. They make a big deal about it, but variants of unknown significance directly related to bone health show up on this baby. So from there, they start getting a little bit more testing done. They want to bring everything up in court of what happened with the DFACS. The state goes first, of course. They bring in their witnesses. Now, I was sequestered, so I couldn't be in there during the state's witnesses because I was going to testify for the defense. So I'm not allowed. I go every day. I sit out in the gallery. Out in the lobby. And the state gets to bring up DFACS. They put DFACS caseworker on the stand. Not the important one, not the Ashley Smith that should have been put on the stand. They bring in the first girl who doesn't know the difference between up and down. She doesn't know what's going on. She's a sweet enough girl. She's clueless to what's really going on here. They put her on the stand. My name gets brought up because of the email exchange she and I had when Emma and Aria were in her home. So all of this is brought up before a jury. when the defense goes to start questioning, doing cross-examination, there's a whole lot of objecting to. They're not allowed to ask certain questions. They're not allowed to bring things up. Well, that got even worse when they were bringing up their direct witnesses. When the defense would bring up their direct witnesses, things got objected to immediately. And you know what? Multiple times the judge said, that's irrelevant in this case. Defects, this is criminal. That has nothing to do with this case. And you hear those words and you're like, what are you talking about? It has everything to do with why we're here.
Right. That's how they ended up getting charged. So it's interesting. They can do it one way when they want to, but the other way, it doesn't work for them. We saw this in the Maya Kowalski case, where they were not allowed to bring up anything that had to do with DCF after the 7 days. They weren't allowed to bring any of it up, even though DCF was running the show. DCF got complete immunity for what happened to Maya Kowalski and her family in that hospital.
Yeah.
This is why I'm arguing with idiots right now on Twitter about, and this is unrelated, the Nick Rekieta's case. There are idiots on Twitter who keep telling me that the child services only dropped the child abuse charges, the child neglect charges, because of his deal he took with the state. No, they're separate. They're separate. They're completely separate. The DCF has all the power in all the ways to screw with your family forever, regardless of what the criminal court does. They're not connected.
Right.
And they have this like wall between them. So if DCF drops your child neglect charges, it's because they don't have shit. That's why. That's why. And that's why they dropped it in the Rekieta case. And it had nothing to do with his criminal. As we can see here, they don't deal with criminal. They're not connected. And then they're connected when they want to be, right?
Yeah, I was going to say they're not connected, but they are connected in a very nefarious, gross
You're only connected to put you in jail. Okay.
Yes.
But then when it comes to getting you out of that situation, suddenly they're hands off. They have nothing to do with one another.
Yes.
So that is just, I know, chat. I need to stop arguing with morons on Twitter.
It's a waste of your time. It's a waste of your time.
I know.
So, you know what? The defense team wanted to bring, Tucky's defense attorney was Stephen Wasley, who has been with Tucky since day one. He's a great guy. Really cares about the Hernandez family as a whole. That's important with these attorneys. They care about the family, not just their client. Catherine Bernard fought for Carrie and Brady. Jason Hood fought for Carrie and Brady. With the Hernandez, you've got these attorneys working for the family. That's important.
Yeah, very.
Catherine Bernard wanted to call character witnesses, which is really normal. Nothing that you would think is a problem. The judge tried to say that good character doesn't negate criminal behavior. No character witnesses allowed.
I've heard of this before. I mean, they do try to do this.
Yeah.
And I think that that's crazy. In the other case, though, in the Tim's case, were they allowed to have character witnesses?
Oh, yeah. And that helped amazing because it painted a picture for the jury of who these people are. You're profiling them as child abusers. That's what the state is doing. That they're these monsters who maliciously and willingly rendered their child's body useless. And you have character witnesses who are like, I've known her, her whole life, or I've known him since high school. And they have good things to say about these people. I understand the theory behind you can do bad things even though people think you're a good person. We all understand that. But the jury still deserves to hear what people want to say about these people who are looking at 80 years.
Well, and if it's allowed in one case, that's a criminal case in the same state, how could it not be allowed in another case?
Well, I've got something even worse. So he wanted to not allow any parental fitness. So to break that down, the state of Georgia forced Matt and Tucky into individual therapy, marriage counseling, and paid supervisors to watch them interact with each other. So you need to understand that Tucky saw a therapist, Matt saw a therapist. When they finally could talk after 10 months, they had to have marriage counseling together. Heather Dunn, juvenile judge, ordered this. So the defense wants to call these people to the stand because these people had testified in juvenile court what amazing parents they are, and that they have 0 red flags, and that their health evaluation and their mental health evaluation shows that they're glowing, amazing parents. Well, the judge said that wasn't allowed.
That is so sick. That is so wrong. Are you surprised that after all of that, that they got the not guilty verdict after keeping all of that evidence out? The state's case must have been pretty damn weak for that.
Did you watch closing arguments?
No. So, okay.
Do that at some point.
I was going to ask you if you had time. Maybe we should just pull them up and watch them right now.
It's so funny to listen to the states. Yeah, I think the states is like, I don't even know how long. It's not very long.
Oh, okay. What I have pulled up ready to go was the defense closing arguments. Hold on. Let me see if I can find the state's closing arguments.
The states is in there, embedded into that article, and it's like highlighted blue.
Yeah, I see the defense, but not the states. Hold on. Let me see.
I think it's under one of the pictures.
All right, here. Let me just pull this up so maybe you can look with me.
Yeah.
We can find it. I was going to pull up the defense closing arguments, but if the state's closing arguments are funny, we should definitely watch those.
It's really ridiculous.
So here's the link to the verdict. Jurors sat in court. Watch the defense closing arguments here. No.
She did so right
here.
there.
State's closing arguments. Okay. Here they are. We should watch this probably. How long is it? Let's see.
I don't remember how long she talked. It's not very long.
All right, let's skip the ads.
I mean,
it's only 22 minutes.
Okay.
It's only 22. All right, let me make this big. Let's watch the state's closing arguments. But before we do this, folks, I do want to remind you, if you enjoy this coverage, if you want me to keep covering these cases, I would love you to support the show. That would be great. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done that, because those two things are free. And if you want to support the show, you want to throw me a couple of breadsticks for doing this kind of coverage, you can do that through Super Chats or try new Super Tips, supertip.gg/Megan Fox. It is pinned to the top of the chat. And if you have not seen what Super Tips look like, they look like this.
Beetroot juice lowers your blood pressure. Keep calm, Mama Fox.
And that was my dad, by the way. We have AI voices that you can choose from to send super tips. That was from Skipper Trucking. Thank you so much for that. I missed that one the other night, by the way. But all of if you want to use that, we have Judge Bev's voice, which would be fun for this one too. For Judge Beverly Canone is in there. I'm working on getting Judge Grudge. But anyway, support the show. It does help me cover these. A lot of people complain. They're like, why do you cover the Hales all the time? And how come you're not back to your, important things? Well, for one, I think that the Hales case is important. But for two, it's very difficult to cover these cases because a lot of people do not want to hear about the topics because they're too upsetting. It's too upsetting. So you have to understand that if you want this type of coverage, you do have to support the coverage. All right, here we go. This is the state's closing arguments in the Hernandez case.
Parents want and hope that their child is found sick as much as these defendants have here throughout the course of this trial. Every cough, every vomit, every ailment that a child can have throughout the course of their childhood was documented and mattered after the fact. Because they have to explain how their 3-month-old, who can't walk, who can't talk, who can't crawl, who can't roll over, had 8 fractures to her body. 8 fractures when Emma was never dropped.
Okay, I hate her already. I hate her.
And this is a huge thing to point out. They documented all of this and literally brought this baby to the doctor for these problems. Everyone needs to remember, no one reported Matt and Tucky. So for her to say this is complete hogwash. They brought their daughter to the doctor because of these problems, but now she's pointing it out like they hid it, like it was in secret.
Oh my God. That's right. They did.
They brought her.
They brought her to the hospital. This is one of these cases where you bring your kid to the hospital because you're like, I don't know what's going on. And next thing you know, you're in handcuffs. because they're like, well, you did it. And we don't know what it is. And because we're stupid, you did it.
Also, I want to point out, if you look at the little drawing, in the indictment, the feet were never, on both her feet, there's alleged fractures. That was never brought up in the indictment and never even brought up in trial. Like, we don't even know if they're really fractures or not.
Oh my God. Yeah. So this little cartoon skeleton they have, like, isn't even accurate. They're just lying.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I literally hate her already.
And never fell off of anything. Defendants had no problem taking their child to urgent care for constipation, for vomiting, for nicking the nail, the skin when they're trimming the nail.
Objection, Your Honor. It wasn't defendants who took their child to urgent care for the nicking of the nails. It was defects because it happened during a supervised visitation.
Oh, snap.
Yes.
Snap. You object during these ridiculous closing arguments. I love it.
Megan.
Oh my God.
That same attorney right now, she objected 7 times during the Tim's closing argument because the prosecutor tried to bring in new evidence. And Catherine was on fire objecting to it. And what she just said,
the judge allowed her to do that speaking objection.
He'll say something.
That was defects. They didn't do that. Normally you can't do that. Is he gonna yell?
Oh yeah, he says something. But just to give a little bit of what she just said is not true. Matt and Tucky didn't bring Emma in for constipation, throwing up, or this bleeding on her finger that profusely bled during a visit for 30 minutes and would not stop bleeding. That was all foster parents and these visit supervisors. Matt and Tucky they didn't bring her for constipation or throwing up.
They didn't have her.
They didn't have her.
They didn't have custody of her. How could they have brought her? So this woman can't even get the basic facts right of who brought her to the hospital for stuff. Exactly. Which, by the way, the point she's making here is really bullshit, because she's saying they took her for all these little things, but they couldn't bother to take her for fractures. They did. That's how she got taken away from them. Yes. They took her to the hospital for the swollen leg that turned out to be a fracture. That's why this happened, because they took her to the hospital.
Exactly.
And the super chats are flowing in. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Carrie McPhee became a YouTube member. Welcome. Welcome to the Fox Den. You know, we're busy putting weirdos in jail over here. That's my new goal in life.
Right to jail.
Right away. Thank you, Carrie, for joining the Muppet Mafia. And Lisa, thanks for the 2. How's the tattoo drawing coming along? Oh, do you mean the one for that was it Wizzy Wheels that asked me for it? I can't remember. I think there's been several AI drawings. We've found some good ones. I'll have to find them and show them to you at some point. And Celestial Force, thanks for the $3.99. Thank you, Megan, for covering cases like this. Well, you know what? These cases are very close to my heart. And like I've told you before, I would cover them anyway, whether the chat supported it or not, because they are that important to me as well. But I do know that many of you support these families. You support this reporting, and you tune in to see it. You've been asking me for it for a long time. So I just appreciate that you're here and that you're watching this. We've got 454 people in the chat, which is amazing. And I know that your letters and your calls to these prosecutors and DCF and elected officials did get coverage on this case. It got eyeballs, and that was what we were looking for. That's what we needed. You did a lot of work with Spike Cohen and You Are the Power. Those of you who volunteered, I just want to say thank you, because we would never have gotten here. I don't think, without the actual, the cameras wouldn't have been in the courtroom. We wouldn't have had the news reporting on this if we hadn't made a bunch of noise. So I really appreciate you noisemakers out there. You make me proud.
Continue. Thank you. But after they got caught.
Wait, what did he say? Oh, hold on. I got to jump back.
Continue. Facts because it happened during a supervised visitation.
All right. But
all right.
Thank you.
All right.
But
Thank you.
He
didn't do too much. All right.
He at the end of this go over Catherine. Like, Catherine questioned his authority so much, he doesn't even want to look at her.
What was his name?
David Dickinson.
David Dickinson? You can't make this stuff up. You really can't. Dickinson. Yeah, that tracks. Remember, vote to not retain David Dickinson because he doesn't know how to put on a fair trial.
It mattered. What were they doing when Emma got bruises to her neck, her trunk, the diaper area from the car seat? What were they doing when she got bruising behind the ear? What were they doing when they
Bringing her to the doctor?
Scalp was swollen?
Wait, what were they doing? They went to the doc. They went to your child abuse pediatricians.
Yeah,
Did she just tell on herself? She just said, what were they doing when she got the bruises from the car seat?
Yes, that's the thing. First of all, she never had bruising on her neck.
Is there a new type of child abuse where you abuse your child in a car seat? What the hell is she talking about?
So the family would talk about these markings, and it was foster families would notice these marks that would come up where car seat was, where, onesies were. But she never had bruising on her neck. So she talks about bruising on the neck, and she also talks about facial swelling at one point. Never happened with Emma. That did not happen.
And also the car seat thing is something that Matt told the doctor about.
Yes.
He told him, if you've told the doctor the car seat's leaving marks on her, we don't think it should be, something is wrong. That's not you leaving marks on your baby. It's the car seat. So something is wrong with your baby's. Something is wrong that this manufactured thing that is supposed to be safe for babies is not safe for your baby. So how are they? She's saying
she
there.
has no evidence, so she's just making crap up. And look how much she needs her notes. She's got to read her notes like the whole time.
I don't like this woman at all. What was her name again?
Caroline Yee.
Caroline Yee. She's another one. Is she an ADA or a DA? What is she?
She's an ADA under Penny Penn.
Ugh. How could you prosecute a case like this? I would quit. I would quit before doing this case. I'd be like, are you kidding me? You want me to go out there and argue that these people are monsters? And it's clear that at least there's reasonable doubt for sure that this baby has some medical thing. I would quit my job.
Megan, they don't expect parents to be able to afford attorneys to fight this. They think they're going in there. And how often have they done this? Where they just go in there and paint these people like
railroad you.
Yes.
And you get stuck with maybe a public defender, and no shade to public defenders because they are doing the Lord's work. Trust me, one of my best interviews was with a 30-year public defender in Rochester, who is a wonderful woman. And my God, the conversations, we need public defenders. If those of you out there, if there are any of you out there considering law degrees, these days, the place to be is in the public defense office because prosecutors are out of control. They're out of control. We need good prosecutors too, but we need people who will stand up to the DA and say, we should not take this case. This is a terrible case.
What were they doing when they saw that one side of the child's face was swelling up? What were they doing
this never
when they saw
happened.
that the child's leg
That
was
never happened.
She never had facial swelling.
Never happened. She's just making it up. Okay.
Tucky was worried about scalp swelling. Scalp swelling brought her to the doctor the same time as the leg swelling.
What's this one side of the face swelling?
I don't know.
She's worried about this area, not this. But she's all, so what were they doing when the side of the face? Well, it was the top of her head, and she went to the doctor.
Yes. Yes.
God, I hate these people so much.
They waited. It only mattered when they realized that the doctors could see what they couldn't see, and they realized that. It only mattered when the doctors told them that they could see the history of what Emma's body had to endure. It mattered when they realized that none of the doctors, including Dr. Chanduri, Emma's pediatrician, weren't buying the story that Emma had a history of bruising from the car seat.
That's not true. Her pediatrician never joined this cabal. Did the pediatrician?
Well, she called ahead and told Choa, hey, I'm sending a family. I have no concerns up until today. She had no history. They brought Emma and Aria into all visits, no problems. But she did call Choa and say, I'm sending this family. I suspect something may be going on. But she had nothing up until that day because Matt showed her the picture of the bruise behind Emma's
All right.
ear.
So she did tell them she suspected possible child abuse.
Yes, she did. She called that day.
That's really scary. God,
Listen,
that's
people need to
scary.
start thinking about who they bring their kids to. That's one question I get
Because
asked
you
a
never
lot.
know. You never know who's going to do something like that. I'm terrified of doctors. I'm absolutely terrified of them because of this. And I bend over backwards to do whatever they tell me to do. In fact, with my middle daughter, I've had concerns about her for many years, but I never pushed to go to any specialists or anything. I never pushed because I was like, well, you know better. Just listen to the doctor. The doctors know what they're talking about. And if you push too hard, you're going to get hung up with some allegation, right? And it turns out after all these years, I was right. I should have pushed for specialists because now they're going, because now her symptoms have increased to such a level that, it's obvious to everyone. Yeah. But maybe I could have found out earlier, but I was too scared. I
understand. Look what they do. They turn around and report you when you bring in a baby with a swollen leg. And by the way, the trauma nurse who testified in this case, she couldn't even see a swollen leg. She testified to that. Like, the leg looked the same to me. So Tucky sees it as a mother and is like, something's wrong with her leg. Her head looks swollen. The soft spot has moved. We need to get seen. So they go and they get seen.
God, I can't stand this woman already. I mean, she's making my skin crawl.
Yeah.
Bruising from holding her head while applying nasal spray. Bruising from doing bicycles past gas and leaning in too hard. It mattered when they were facing criminal charges and were being watched.
Doesn't that suggest a medical problem? Who's leaning in so hard doing leg bicycles on a newborn that they're causing bruises unless there's an underlying medical condition?
And listen, when Tucky got arrested at their home, that's what Matt was telling the police. Look, our daughter, I did bicycle. I told the doctors, what if I broke her leg? What if I caused these fractures?
Oh my God, it's a Karen Reed moment. Did I hit him? What if I hit him? Did I hit him? And now it's I hit him. So they're using his own words.
Yes.
I could have caused this.
Yes.
It's the my cousin Vinny. I shot the clerk. He said to me, I shot the clerk.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. They're taking that, what he wondered when they said, think about what happened here. And they're at CHOA. What happened here? They're going over everything in their head. Well, I held her head when I did nasal spray. Could I have put a bruise behind her head, behind her ear when I did bicycles? Could I have done this?
Could I have done this?
Yes.
I mean,
they
and
never
at that
denied
point,
the
the doctors should have said, it's possible if she has some kind of bruising disorder, a bleeding disorder, perhaps some kind of, we need to look further into this.
Yes.
Maybe she does. Maybe she has some kind of that is a condition. People who easily bruise have all different kinds of conditions underlying that. But they never even considered that. Never. They just went straight to abuse.
Yes.
Vicki, this is Vicki in the chat says, I would sue the state of Georgia, the judge, the prosecutor. You can't. They have total immunity. You can never sue a judge. Can't sue the prosecutor either. You could sue DCF. There is a civil case you could bring in a 1984 case in a federal court. You could. I would talk to Sean McMillan about that. I personally think, Jennifer, that Sean McMillan ought to be brought in to look at this case. I don't know what the families are planning to do, and I know they don't have unlimited money, but what was done to them is criminal. And now that they they're not guilty, DCF is in a very vulnerable position. Sean McMillan has won millions against hospitals and DCF for doing this exact same thing. In 1983 cases, he takes them to court and he wins. Now it's not cheap. It's expensive. But if they want to, if this is something they want to do, I mean, I think that the community would be behind doing it. helping them do it. And I hope to God, see, this is why they don't want to pay Maya Kowalski, by the way.
Yeah.
This is why Johns Hopkins is going to keep her tied up in appeals for the rest of her damn life, because if she gets her hands on that $260 million, she's going to create a defense fund for families like this, and they're going to be able to fight back. And that's what they do not want. They do not want people out there able to fight them, take them to court, and make this stop.
Yeah, it's true.
All right, here we go. More nonsense.
And now Emma, who up until this point had been healthy, growing, and thriving, according to Dr. Chanduri, who had seen her since birth. And now all of a sudden she's painted as this sickly child.
Oh, she's going for the Munchausen defense now? Is this it? Are we going for the mom's making it up now?
This trial, we've heard a kitchen sink of defenses in hopes that one of these will stick. From rickets, vitamin C deficiency, vitamin D deficiency, copper deficiency, osteogenesis imperfecta, the list just goes on.
Yeah, there's a lot of things it could be. It's called reasonable doubt, you ass.
But the state brought to you the people that you needed to hear from. No, we're not going to bring in an officer just to tell you, we spoke to person A.
Yeah. Yeah, by the way.
What?
They
didn't bring in the police officer? Shut the front door. This is what they're doing in the Boston case in Karen Reed. They're not bringing in the lead prosecutor who did such a poor investigation. He was looking for nudes on Karen Reed's phone, and now the Commonwealth isn't going to bring him. And he got fired.
They did not bring law enforcement in to testify. So that tells you who the accuser really is here, which is CPS and child abuse pediatricians are the accusers, because that's who they brought in.
Why did they avoid that? What was the officer going to say?
The officer was demoted after this case for
just the proctor. Okay. Sure.
Bad police work on child abuse cases. He was demoted.
No shit.
Yeah.
What was his name?
Adrian Richardson.
And he was demoted for doing shitty casework on child abuse cases. Unbelievable. Unhung Hero says, all the best. All the best. And Jada, thanks for the 5 horrible case. Yet we know of a Florida case where DCF turns a blind eye. That's correct. But see, that's the whole problem with DFS and CPS. And some people have lied about my position on this and said that I don't think CPS should exist or DCF should exist. That's not, truthfully, that's not the case. I think the way it exists is a problem, because they focus on these cases where they are not needed. And the ones where they are needed, it falls through the case. You know, I have some very good sources who are DCF workers, and they're good people. They're very good people who care very deeply about children. And they will tell me, they text me all the time, there's a case falling through the cracks. My supervisors won't let me look into it. I don't know what to do. This child is in serious danger. And yet and then they tell me I'm fighting my supervisor on this other case where there is no danger to the child, and they want me to take the kid away from the parents, and I don't know what to do. And I advise them, stand your ground. Stand your ground. Continue to do what you do. Continue to tell the truth, and don't leave your job. They tell me all the time, I want to leave. Don't do it. If you're in the position to help these families in DCF and you're a CPS worker and you can stand your ground and tell the truth, then you should stay there and do it. We need we need people like that. And we need to reform this system. It's not that we don't need child protective agencies, right? I mean, maybe we could pare it down. I personally believe it should be an offshoot of police. I believe it should be police led, because police are the ones who do investigations into child abuse, and they're trained in real investigation.
Or they should be.
They should be. Sometimes they don't do a good job, but they're supposed to be trained in investigation and held to higher standards. Not to mention, a criminal standard is a much higher burden of proof. DC child abuse cases should never be in civil court. Never, ever, ever. It should be in criminal court, where the standard is so much higher, and the burden of proof is so much higher. So there's problems with it, but I've never said that DCF, I don't think I have, that shouldn't exist entirely, but it does need to be restructured. It does need to be redone so that families like this are not put in the crosshairs like this. And I do believe that it's almost like, and you saw it with the Kowalski case, they get laser focused on someone they do not like, someone who pushed back against them, like Beata Kowalski did. That's not allowed. You push back against DCF, you piss off the wrong person, and they're going to make your life an absolute misery. You must comply, and that's a really dangerous place to be. And parents need more rights when it comes to this type of investigation.
Yeah.
And they don't have that.
For purposes of the record, that the state characterizing the defenses in this way is not accurate and not appropriate.
Okay, you're trying.
Well, I want to hear that objection again.
I don't know what trial they were sitting in, but the state.
Look at her face when this objection comes in. Look at her face.
Throughout the course of this trial, we've heard a kitchen sink of defenses in hopes that one of these will stick. From rickets, vitamin C deficiency, vitamin D deficiency, copper deficiency, osteogenesis imperfecta, the list just goes on. And I don't know what trial they were sitting in, but the state brought to you the people that you needed to hear from. No, we're not going to bring in an officer just to tell you, oh, we spoke to person A, B,
I'm
and
just
C.
going to go ahead and interpose an objection for purposes of the record that
Her face. I have to see that again.
You needed to hear from. No, we're not going to bring in an officer just to tell you, oh, we spoke to person A, B,
I'm
and
just
C.
going to go ahead and interpose
After the fact.
Wait, what happened? Where did it go?
Because they have to explain how their 3-month-old
Shoot, it went all the way back. Why did it do that?
care for constipation, for vomit.
Go back to the
It
where we
mattered.
were.
The child's scalp was swollen.
Yeah,
What were
right.
they doing when they were to urgent care? They could see what they couldn't see, and they realized that.
No,
And Emma
we're
had a
over
history
here.
of bruising. Watched.
I lost my place. I
And
don't know
now
how that
Emma,
happened.
who up until this point had been healthy.
You're getting closer.
We're getting closer. Oh, there. It was right here.
Who up until this point had been healthy. This trial, we've heard a kitchen sink of defenses in hopes that. And I don't know what trial they were sitting in, but the state brought to you the people that you needed to hear from. No, we're not going to bring in an officer just to tell you, oh, we spoke to person A, B,
I'm
and
just
C.
going to go ahead and interpose an objection for purposes of the record that the state characterizing the defenses in this way is not accurate and not appropriate.
Okay, it's argument. You may proceed.
Thank you. No, we're not going to bring in an officer just to say, yes, we spoke to person A, B, and C, only to not be able to go into what A, B, and C said, because that's hearsay. We brought to you the people that they talked to so that you can hear for them, for yourselves, what they found and what they observed and what their findings were. We brought you
She's
the skeletal
flustered.
surveys. We brought you the medical records. We brought you the people that the defendant
You know
spoke to
she's
early on
losing.
in the investigation, in speaking with the defendants.
She
for
doesn't
their
even believe
explanation
it.
of how
He's
these
reading from a
hearings
script.
She's reading it. She doesn't even believe it. She's like, God damn it.
And no, we didn't call the pediatric orthopedic surgeon who put the splint on Emma because that was the extent of their involvement.
Oh yeah, that's
They put a
big.
splint on Emma. Nurse Borders testified to that was the extent. But ladies and gentlemen, you can use your common sense. If the pediatric orthopedic surgeon didn't think there was anything wrong with Emma, they wouldn't have put a splint on her.
Megan, that orthopedic surgeon in Choa, they did
Yeah.
not bring him in. That orthopedic surgeon said this baby needs vitamin D and to be sent
Right.
home. They were going to discharge Emma until Stephen Mesner got his claws in it. They
Oh my God.
splinted Emma with a ACE bandage on her leg. An ACE bandage, gave her children's Tylenol, and said this baby needs vitamin D. That's why they didn't bring in their orthopedic surgeon. But
Right. The vitamin D deficiency was in the records.
Yes.
So they're arguing that the defense is bringing up all this kitchen sink defenses, including vitamin D deficiency. Oh, you mean the one your own doctor said she
truth?
had?
The accurate diagnosis?
And wasn't Tucky diagnosed while she was pregnant with vitamin D deficiency?
She was anemic, but she didn't know that. No one
She was
told her.
anemic. Okay. But it was in her record though, right?
Yes. And so
And
was
they should have. So they never gave her the medicine she needed, which was
No.
more vitamin D, which probably caused the vitamin D deficiency in Emma, because the baby is taking your nutrients. And if you don't have enough of those nutrients, the baby doesn't get it either.
Yes. Exactly.
So we have medical negligence on the part of the doctors treating Tucky too.
Yes.
Unbelievable. And how are you supposed to know?
Also, to note, Emma was, when the day she was born, we found out through all of this, she was diagnosed with acrocyanosis, and no one told the parents that. So that can be like your extremities turn blue and purple, and you can have marks come up on you. So there's
my goodness.
Yeah, there's
Wait, when was this?
The day she was born, March 13th. The day she was
that
born.
in her records?
Yes, and no one ever told the parents.
What? When did you find this in the record?
Maybe a year ago.
How did they know? How did the doctors know that that she had that?
She was born with bruising on her eyelid and born with acrocyanosis. Like, it's in her birth record.
This is crazy.
No
I don't
one
remember
ever
hearing.
told the parents.
Oh my
And
God.
listen, and you can say, well, the parents didn't ask. When you're bringing home your new baby, do you read your birth record? I mean, you were there. You think you know everything, and you think the doctors are going to tell you you need to know. They were not told. It took multiple subpoenas for Tucky to get her records from OBGYN and get the birth records, because when your kids are taken by CPS, those records are denied from you. You don't get them. It takes attorneys subpoenaing them to get your hands on them.
That is outrageous.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting the records was a big problem.
Horrible. It's really bad for a lot of the parents here.
And, I just recently had to get all my daughter's records from the hospital. You know what they did? They sent me a CD. How the hell am I going to read it? I don't have a CD-ROM drive anymore. Who the hell has a CD-ROM drive?
Oh my God.
Who? Where am I going to take it to get it? I'm Brad. I need Brad. Maybe Brad has one. I was actually thinking of sending it to Brad to have him put it on a USB. How are they not putting medical records on a USB at this point?
That's crazy.
Who is reading a CD-ROM? What is this, 1994? What are we doing? So yeah, they make it very difficult to get any of your actual records. And so I can't even read them still. I still don't know what's in them.
Now, the defense has been painting Dr. Messner, the child abuse pediatrician, as this evil character who's on a mission to mark every child with child abuse. But ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you who all suspected child abuse even before we got to Dr. Messner. MS pediatrician, Dr. Chanduri, the ER doctor, Dr. Krieger, the social worker.
And Your Honor, again, she's mischaracterizing the evidence regarding these folks' testimony. I recognize it's closing and that there is wide latitude, but when she is mischaracterizing testimony from the ER doctor that only came back after the skeletal survey, then I would object.
Okay, objection overruled. Continue,
Thank you, Your
please.
Honor. Abby Rising, the social worker, the radiologist, DFACS.
Your Honor, I'm sorry. Now, Your Honor, I must object. At this point, is the argument from the state that the DFACS investigation is relevant and something that we can go into as evidence?
No,
Opening the door.
No, ma'am.
Okay, I will make a continuing objection that we sought to introduce this evidence to the jury.
Ma'am, I've asked not to go into this in front of the jury. Thank you.
Son of a bitch. So let me get this straight. The prosecution can use DFACS all they want to indict you, but you can't use it to defend yourself. It is the exact same thing that happened in the Kowalski case. They wanted to use it when they wanted to, and that door they opened the door multiple times. And I do love Judge Carroll, but Judge Carroll was like, "We are walking a thin line, and we can only introduce certain things." I mean, I understood why he was like, I guess he made the right decision because he did it for both sides. He kind of let them go a little bit in, and then he let both sides go a little bit in, but then would pull it back. But I mean, it's so stupid. Just let the whole thing in. Let everybody know what really happened. Let's tell the whole story. Let's not leave out parts of it that are relevant. And this is crazy. She can't be putting it up on the screen and talking about what they found, the social worker and the DFACS and what they found, and then the defense can't do shit about it
because the defense had witnesses to question about this, and he wouldn't allow it. So there it is on a closing arguments, social worker and DFACS right there. But the defense wasn't allowed to go into questioning with these people. That's wrong.
It's so wrong. It's so, and this is the other thing. In the Tim's case, they were allowed to talk about DFACS. So why is it so different from one case to another? If you ask me, that's unequal justice, and that's against the Constitution. Unequal justice is no justice at all. You must have equal justice under the law. So if one family in the exact same situation is allowed to bring DFACS in and bring everything up, then every family needs to be allowed to bring that in. There must be a law change here. There has to be something written in stone that says if you're accused criminally because of a DCF case, you can, all of that is relevant. It all comes in, period, all the time.
The jury should be able to hear both sides, and then you should be allowed to object to whatever you think needs to be objected to as the attorney.
Of course. I love this attorney, by the way. Way to stick it to all of them. A continuing objection on the record, because on appeal, this judge is going down. I'm sorry, but he's going to get wrecked on appeal.
Catherine had to say so many times, and I will continue to make the same objection I have been. And he'll
that's
just
what
say,
good lawyers
as
do.
noted, as noted.
Well, that's what good lawyers do. You have to get it on the record. If you don't, you can't appeal it. You can only appeal your objections. You can't appeal the facts of the case. You have to get it on the record that I object. This is an appealable issue. This is wrong. If they got a guilty verdict, this judge would be facing a hell of an appeal for keeping out all of this information that was exculpatory information.
A week before this trial, there's another family. They were 6 or 7 years ago. The father's in prison. Same exact story. Some of their children were adopted out. David Dickinson was the judge for that, and it just went to appeals court.
Oh, well, I hope it gets. What was the case about again?
It's this exact same thing as this.
And they adopted the kids out?
Only some of them. And the father's in prison.
Oh no, which family is this? Have I read about this yet?
I don't know. I don't remember a lot. The mom had reached out to me when she found out this judge was Matt and Tucky's judge, and she warned me about it, but she's off social media now. And she was under an alias name.
Oh,
so Dickinson should have really thought about that as he's making all these really bad decisions.
That's upsetting. That's
it's
super
horrible.
Upsetting.
It's horrible.
Absolutely horrible. Oh, by the way, those of you who sent super tips the other night that I missed, we will be going over those on tonight's show at 8. So don't worry. I will read them. We will get them read. Those of you in the chat who have not hit the like button, make sure you do that. And if you think you've subscribed to this channel, make sure you check, because YouTube is asshole and sometimes they unsubscribe you. No, my laptop does not have a CD-ROM. Laptops haven't had CD drives for years and years and years. None. Zero. I figured my PC might have one, but nope. They haven't had them for years. It's just not a thing anyone has anymore. But somebody in the chat, D just told me I can get an external CD-ROM drive at Walmart for like $10. If that's true, I'm going to go get one today. So here we go. Back to this shit show.
The radiologist, and then we get to Dr. Mesner. All of those people, before it ever gets to Dr. Mesner, suspected child abuse before Dr. Mesner diagnosed Emma with non-accidental trauma. And then Dr. Wilcox, a geneticist, confirmed that he believes this is non-accidental trauma.
Boy, I don't like her at all.
Experts from within different departments all suspected child abuse, all say that this is child abuse. And yet the defendants would have you believe that this is genetics, that this is vitamin D deficiency. But ladies and gentlemen, if you recall the evidence was that her vitamin D level was low, but it was not so low that it affected her skeletal structure. It wasn't so low that it couldn't go up with multivitamins. It wasn't so low,
but it was low.
Fractures from normal handling.
Baloney.
Now, the defense stating that vitamin D deficiency happened in utero.
You know, this pisses me off because every person is different. Your vitamin D deficiency may affect you differently than somebody else's. A normal to, like, let's say if normal is here and yours is here, some people this will affect severely. Some people it won't affect at all. Now, and if it's here, it's the same. Each person is different. How dare she say it wasn't low enough to cause unexplained fractures? How the hell do you know that?
Yes, and CHOA's own standard is anything below 20 is considered deficient. Emma's was 15.6. And they brought in a rebuttal witness at the end. You know, the state goes first and they get to go last. They brought in a rebuttal witness, a radiologist from CHOA, and Catherine tore her up. It was so good. That's what you should do live, is watch her when we have that link. It is so
I want
freaking
that.
entertaining.
When is that going up?
I'm going to ask Chad, because
he
that
put
one
up
alone.
Is he going to put up trial? I hope he's not just cut it up for a deposition not deposition, for a documentary and not let us see the whole thing.
No, he's given the family, Jeb is amazing. He's given them full access. Whatever they want done is what he's going to do.
Oh, I hope to God that because you know what, he can still use it for the documentary, but putting it up completely unedited in its regular form is going to be so helpful to other people who are going through this. So I would like to encourage them to put the trial up. Both of them, Tim's and Hernandez. Let us just watch the trial as it is. And I promise we will support his documentary. 1,000% we will. I will advertise it. I will send it out. I will tell everybody to watch it. I can't wait for it. I think it's going to be amazing. But we need that court footage. We need it. I want to see it.
Entertaining too. Like Catherine just destroyed that rebuttal witness to the point the doctor's neck was so red and she was holding it. And Catherine said, "Doctor, are you okay?" And she said, "I'm a little nervous and you're being aggressive." And Catherine's like, "Oh, well, I'll try and be less aggressive, but you are accusing my client of child abuse." She said, "I'm not accusing anyone of anything." So you're not accusing them of child abuse?
So they're not child abusers?
Yeah. And then she's like,
Yeah.
It's so good.
We will chat. No, do not worry about that. I will absolutely watch that trial with you when that footage is available. We will watch it on this channel, and Jennifer will come and watch it with us, I'm sure, if she has time, so she can give us the background and the inside information on what was going on at the time, because it's very helpful to have you here, Jennifer, while we're doing this. And I just love you so much. You're one of my favorite people that I've ever met online, because, well, you're amazing. You're a force. You're brave and you're courageous and you're tireless. And I just can't believe how much you've been through with all of these families. Imagine being a foster parent, you guys, and stumbling into this by having a baby in your care that you're like, this baby wasn't abused. This baby is sick. And they're going after an innocent family, and then finding yourself down a rabbit hole where how many families have you worked with now?
It's like a dozen that we've spoken to, 24 with Rebecca Lindstrom.
Yeah. So Jennifer gets into this completely unaware and ends up blowing the whistle on this whole thing. And I think you're a damn hero. You and your husband. I think you're a damn hero. And you deserve medals and honors. And I know you've been under so much stress. And this has to be just an amazing moment for you to see these families get vindicated. And you are, thank God for you. Thank God for you and your husband. Honestly, thank God for you.
Well,
and
Megan, if it wasn't for you and it wasn't for Spike Cohen and you are the power and Rebecca Lindstrom, we would be talking to nobody.
Oh, Jesus. So scary.
You know,
so scary.
Thank God people did listen and put this out there. That's huge.
Yeah, I really give a lot of credit to Spike for that. He came out of nowhere.
Oh, and he was there on the last.
Was he?
Well, and his wife came to this.
I saw some video footage of him on, I think it was on Facebook. I wanted to pull up. I don't know if we'll get to it or not, but we'll keep playing this and see if we have time.
We heard testimony from Dr. Wilcox that babies take from their mother. So even if there was a vitamin D deficiency on the part of the mom, the baby's fine. It takes from the mom. If anything, it would
not if it's not there.
And we heard testimony from the defendant herself that she fell during her pregnancy and she was fine. There's nothing wrong with Emma's vitamin D other than the fact that it was just low. It did not affect her skeletal structure. So I want to go back. also want to point out that vitamin D deficiency in and of itself does not cause people to spontaneously crack. Fractures are caused by some mechanism. It's a force great enough to break the bendy bone of a child. It's a force that cannot be generated by a 3-month-old who can't even roll over. It's a force greater than that which can be generated by a toddler. And that is malice. We talk about the labs. Even in Dr. Benson's own words, Emma was the most thoroughly tested infant that he's ever seen. And indeed, that is what the evidence showed. She had normal calcium levels. She had normal alkaline phosphatase levels. She had no blood clotting disorder. She had no blood disorder. She had no bone disorder. She had no liver disease. Everything.
Okay. Explain.
To say that she had no clotting disorder, no blood disorder, and no bone disorder, CHOA did not do any of those tests before they called police and CPS. They simply didn't do it.
And what about the bruising disorder? That's some sort of disorder.
Yes,
what about that?
It is there's something going on. Those marks haven't showed up in 8-9 months. She's not had any of those anymore, which the doctors testified to. You can have a problem and then you can start, your body can get over that problem. These don't have to be lifelong situations for Emma, but those markings that came and went in every foster home that she was in. And they didn't rule out anything in CHOA. They did not check for bone disease and bone disorders and blood disorders. They didn't do that. Tony took her to hematology and she did end up being diagnosed with acrocyanosis by this doctor. But then we found out, well, she was already diagnosed with that at birth. So
oh
she
my
could just
God.
sit here and say that everything's ruled out, but it's a lie. It was not ruled out. It just wasn't.
Unbelievable.
It turned out normal in her lab. She does not have a disorder. And we also talked extensively about the fractures because that is what they've been charged with. There was testimony that there were healing fractures, 3 rib fractures and 1 right foot fracture. There were also acute fractures, the 2 right femoral plasmametaphyseal lesions, 1 right tibial plasmametaphyseal lesion, and 1 left tibial plasmametaphyseal lesion. And you heard testimony that rib fractures and plasmametaphyseal lesions are highly specific for child abuse. This is not from the normal handling of a child. The fact that there were healing and acute fractures show that these happen at different points in time. The child was fractured not once, but on at least 2 different occasions. And I also want to point out that Dr. Benson, in his testimony, denied there ever being any sort of plasmametaphyseal lesions. I do think it's curious that defense fails to bring up the testimony of Dr. Krishnamurthy and Dr. Hutchison. Dr. Hutchison, their own pediatric radiologist, admitted that she too saw rib fractures. She too saw at least 1 plasmametaphyseal lesion. Again, it's up to you to determine the credibility of these witnesses. Bruises were brought up several times throughout the course of this trial, and the main purpose of it was to explain for why there were additional skeletal surveys done. Emma didn't have 4 skeletal surveys just because of this one incident. She went up on June 6th. She went in for the skeletal survey. As a follow-up, she went again in June. And then in July, there was a new incident happen. That's why Emma has more skeletal surveys than would normally occur.
It's disgusting how many x-rays this baby had.
Because there was more.
How much radiation did they subject her to?
So Benson, the orthopedic surgeon from California, Ryan and I, when I was still sequestered, we were reading over. Dr. Benson wanted to double check his numbers. It's over 2,000 images taken of Emma.
Oh my God. For what purpose? Are they trying to give her cancer? Like what in the world?
It's horrible. And that's with CT images as well. So when you are seen by a child abuse pediatrician, policy says you come back in 2 weeks and you get another survey. What they're looking for is anything they couldn't see before. They want to get the parents for as many fractures as possible.
Absurd.
When Tony and Took brought her in for the markings on the bottom of her feet and on her leg, the linear bruise markings that showed up, they did another skeletal survey. And then because of that, in 2 weeks, they had to do another skeletal survey and multiple CT scans. So over 2,000 images. It's a ton of radiation that Emma was exposed to.
Awful. That is so awful. Chat, I will try to adjust the volume. So unfortunately, the volume on the court audio is always terrible. Okay. Always terrible. So just so you know, we will always be louder than the court audio. I will turn us down and try and even that out. I can try to boost this audio. So let me try to boost the audio on the browser, although it doesn't usually work, but I will try. Here we go.
More than one incident that happened in this case. And what you heard during trial was that you could see from the skeletal surveys that there was further evidence of healing of the prior fractures, but there were no additional fractures once Emma was removed from the defendants. There was also no additional bruises once Emma was removed from family members.
That is crazy.
I know that because despite the fact
Okay.
that the daycare...
Go ahead.
She's going to talk about the daycare worker. In juvenile court, a daycare director testified under Heather Dunn that Emma had discoloration marks on her hands and feet every single day from July to December. And
Right.
she vomited uncontrollably from July to December daily. Heather Dunn says, just to clarify, did Emma have the markings or vomiting every day? The director says, both.
Oh my God.
That same director testifies at this trial, and she was a key witness. She was a beautiful witness. She doesn't know the parents. She never met the parents. She doesn't know anything about anything except that she had to report this every single day. They had to kick Emma out of daycare because of the amount of vomiting she was doing, Megan. They got a letter from DFACS got a letter from CHOA stating Emma does not have any communicable diseases. This is not contagious. She has health problems that we are evaluating. Just to let Emma go to this day.
You know, she probably also was having digestive issues because of the trauma of being separated from her mother.
She lost breast milk, overnight that was taken from her, even though Tucky.
It causes brain damage. Separating babies from mothers causes them to get literal brain damage. The emotional trauma, infants have emotional trauma, and they know when they are being separated from their mother. They know when something is wrong. And I guarantee you that throwing up and the upset and that's all from that emotional state. And not to mention whatever else is going on.
Whatever medical stuff. It's like a twofold
But how
thing.
dare you say she has medical problems we're evaluating? They're claiming she was abused.
I remember that's what I was told by DFACS. Thank you for your insight, Jennifer. We're currently evaluating Emma's medical condidion. And that's why I was like, wait, what? Foster mom said it was abuse.
Yeah, what medical condition?
What is happening here?
What stick to your story. Stay in your lane.
Yeah. Stick to the story. And they couldn't do that.
Center witness said that she saw bruising on the soles of the feet. She leaves out the photo of the squeeze marks.
Oh my God, sweet one. Oh my God. Radiation sickness. No kidding.
Yeah.
What happens when you get radiation sickness? I bet there's vomiting. I bet there is. I mean, how many? 2,000 x-rays. Absolutely insane. I didn't even think about that, but that's a possibility too.
She denies that she saw those when she saw Emma. She only identifies the photographs of the bottoms of the feet. She does not acknowledge the squeeze mark photographs. We also heard testimony from one of defense's witnesses that they took photos of bruisings that she saw, but she never gave them to the defense. And we don't see them here today either.
This is a big deal. When the daycare director was on the stand, this woman, Caroline Yee, asked, did you give the defense the pictures that you had to take? She had to document all of this and give it to the foster mom. And then this daycare director asked DFACS, are you getting all of the pictures that I'm sending to the foster parent? because this baby has a lot of things coming up. When she was on the stand during this, Caroline Yee asked her, did you give all of those pictures to the defense? That poor daycare director was like, to the attorneys? She's like, lady, I'm not part of all of this. Like, I did my job, sent it to the foster mom and to the state. You have them. Because that's essentially what it is. The state of Georgia has those. That's where she gave them. That stuff like that just ticks me off so bad.
And did they ever have that? I mean, did they?
They never did
cough
anything.
them up?
They never did anything.
You couldn't get that in discovery?
It was through some program called Tadpoles, where this woman and this daycare director were sending it to the foster mom, making sure DFACS got it and asking them, are you getting this? Yeah, we're getting them. We didn't know what she was going to
Did it ever come back up in discovery? Did you get those photos?
No, as far as I know, they didn't. But the defense team doesn't prep their witnesses. The defense team just lets them tell the truth. So they had no idea there were images sent every day.
Oh my God. Well, that's Brady. That's a Brady violation right there. They knew they had those photos and they didn't turn them over.
The state definitely knew about it because Ashley Smith was given that information. And Judge Heather Dunn in juvenile court knows about that and still allowed these parents to go through what they went through, despite a baby being sick every day from July to December.
That is disgusting.
Yeah, it is.
What they did to this family and this baby is disgusting.
And ladies and gentlemen, defense has brought up acrocyanosis multiple times. And I think you can also use your common sense. Anyone who's had a child knows what acrocyanosis looks like. But we've also heard testimony on what acrocyanosis is. We've heard testimony from one of the foster parents, Mr. Irvin, of what acrocyanosis looks like.
Let me ask you a question. With the x-rays, the 2000 x-rays, in what time period was that? Between when and when? Do you know?
June 7th
that she got all those.
July 31st.
Oh my God. In 1 month?
Yeah, June 7th to July 31st. So almost 2 months.
Oh my God. Okay. And when did the vomiting start?
She vomited with me in my house in August. And the daycare director said from July, December.
Oh my God.
Like, it's when the child has a temperature change, can't adjust, looks blue, and that warms up very quickly. It does not last for days like bruises does.
She has to read her notes.
We also heard a lot about genetics. Her COL1A1 was tested. There was no abnormality. COL1A2, there was no abnormality. We heard from Dr. Wilcox that there was no disorder predisposing her to fractures. There was no evidence for rickets. There was no evidence for bethylomyopathy. There was no evidence for hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos. She doesn't have cystic fibrosis. And we heard a lot about.
All right, I just want to point out, I asked Grok if a 3-month-old baby is receiving 2,000 x-rays in 1 month, can she get radiation sickness and what would the symptoms be? And Grok said, a 3-month-old baby receiving 2,000 x-rays in 1 month would be exposed to an extraordinarily high level of ionizing radiation, far exceeding safe limits for medical imaging. This would almost certainly result in radiation sickness, also known as acute radiation syndrome, due to extreme radiation dose. Infants are particularly vulnerable because of their rapidly dividing cells are so much more sensitive to radiation damage. A single chest x-ray for an infant delivers approximately 0.01 to 0.1 MSV of radiation. 2,000 x-rays, assuming an average dose of 0.05 MSV per x-ray, the total dose would be 100 MSV, a very conservative estimate. Radiation sickness typically begins at acute doses above 1,000 MSV, with severe effects at higher doses. A dose of 100 MSV over a month is significant, especially for an infant, and could approach or exceed thresholds for ARS. And here's what it would look like. Symptoms would be nausea and vomiting, may be difficult to assess in a nonverbal infant, loss of appetite or refusal to feed, lethargy or unusual irritability, and fever. Oh my God. Manifest illness, days to weeks, anemia, pale skin, weakness due to bone marrow damage, increased infections, bleeding tendencies, bruising. Oh my God.
Dr.
Severe
Benson.
diarrhea, potentially bloody, dehydration and weight loss, abdominal pain. And of course, a 3-month-old can't tell you she's in pain.
Yeah.
Redness. But remember the redness on her legs?
Yeah.
Remember the rashes, the unexplained rashes on her legs? Redness, burns, ulceration in areas exposed to radiation.
Dr. Benson testified at this trial about this. He brought this up, and they tried to use their rebuttal witness to say, no, you're misunderstanding. You aren't counting it properly. One CT shows a lot of images, but it's only one exposure. But Dr. Benson, he said the amount of radiation Emma received was equivalent to somebody working in like a biochemical lab.
That's crazy.
Yes. Yes. We need a
It
good
now
detox
makes
for
the
Emma.
rashes on her legs explainable. At the daycare center witnessed that she had these unexplainable like redness on her legs. There's freaking radiation burns.
It's very, very possible. It's so hard to know because the parents had been so limited in what they could test for Emma.
My God.
Well, now they can talk to Tony and Took again. That's one big part of this. Remember, this whole time for 2 years, they've not been allowed to talk to their own sister and brother-in-law. They now are able to communicate since the criminal charges are gone. So they get to now try and help Emma and figure out what is going on and hopefully give her a good detox.
Well, I hope that they take her to be evaluated for radiation poisoning because clearly she had so many symptoms of radiation sickness. Although I don't think there's anything that can be done. Once you've been exposed to radiation, that's it. You're done. They could have destroyed her thyroid. She could be at risk for major cancers later on in life. This is sick.
Yeah,
They need to sue. They need to sue this hospital. They need to sue them for her medical care because she's probably going to have lifelong problems because of this. I did not know they put her through that many x-rays. Jennifer, I feel sick. I feel like I'm going to throw up.
It's
disgusting. That is horrible.
And they're just doing it to try and find more fractures. They even said that the Tim's trial, we do that in case there's any tiny fractures we didn't catch the first time.
How much did they put the Tim's baby through?
I don't know how many sets he went through. He had it done at Erlanger and Choa, and definitely more than twice.
Oh my God.
It's a serious
now layered vision. Now that is child abuse.
Yes.
Oh, the irony.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
They took a baby who was not being abused, and then they medically abused that baby.
There's another mom that I'm talking to right now. I won't say her name. They're in the middle of all of this. They brought their baby in for a weird rash, and they had all just had the flu. They brought her in for a weird rash. Choa immediately did x-rays. For a rash?
A rash?
Why would you do x-rays on a child?
And if you have
for a rash?
RSV, if the flu is RSV, then you're going to get a rash. The kids get rashes with RSV flu.
They're obsessed with running skeletal surveys. And now there's a lot of good doctors out there who wonder, do more babies have rib fractures from just regular vaginal birth? And we just don't know about it.
We just don't know it because it heals.
Yes,
Yeah.
because you don't go around x-raysing the
Well,
amount
of course
pressure.
they do. They get squeezed through a tiny canal. They're getting shoulder dislocations are super, super common. All kinds of dislocations, head deformations, that's super. Birth injuries are super common, especially the way that we give birth in America. It's so stupid. The way that we don't use grab.
Oh, well, guess what, Megan?
Your back, and it's absurd.
Well, guess what was found out through all this? Tucky was told to go to the hospital to be induced with Emma. She literally doesn't know why. She was having no issues. It was a week early.
Because they don't want to miss their golf game. That's why.
They put her on.
They did that to me. They did that to me, my first baby, and I said, "Never again. You're never doing this to me again." And my first baby, she almost had to be C-section because I was in labor for 24 hours with that shit.
Yes.
And 24 hours is dangerous. My second baby, I stayed at home as long as I could, no drugs, went to the hospital, got my spinal tap, ready to push. One push, she was out. That was it. It was the best birth ever.
Well, they sent Tucky a week early. gave her Pitocin, and started her contractions. So doctors testified for the defense. That's horrible. You started her body on these heavy contractions. We don't know that babies are not born with rib fractures because we don't go around x-raying them. But these child abuse pediatricians are.
Pitocin makes your contractions way worse.
Yes.
They're far heavier. So that's going to be squeezing on the baby harder than a normal contraction would be. Mamas out there, if you can avoid Pitocin, I'm telling you, that shit hurts. Do not do it if you can. Oh no, what happened? Oh, it wants me to watch a commercial. Hold on. Hopefully it will put us back to where we were.
Yeah.
If we don't get done with this by 11, maybe you could come back. I have to check my schedule. I don't know if we can do, because I would like to go through the defense's closing arguments as well.
Absolutely.
Let me hold on. Let me look at my calendar real quick. It put us all the way back where we at the beginning. Gosh darn it.
Well, I really want to get that rebuttal witness because that will show everybody how great the defense team was with the state's rebuttal witness.
Oh yeah, I want the whole trial, but whatever you can get, I will take. So if you can get it, I will take it. Let's see if I can find where we were. I think we were further ahead than this.
We were more than halfway through.
Yeah, we were. So we were like maybe here.
Now they attacked the CHOA doctors. They've attacked DFACS workers. Ladies and gentlemen, CHOA doesn't go knocking on doors trying to take people's babies away.
Bullshit.
They have a duty. They have a job to do. They are mandated reporters. In a sense, it's no different than if a teacher were to see bruises on a child and they report to DFACS because they are mandated reporters. For these doctors, they can read skeletal surveys and they see what is equivalent to a layperson seeing something on the outside. They saw signs of child abuse. That is why they reported it. What motive do they have to make this up?
Ego,
money, power.
To
power.
Have this vendetta against this family.
They've got tons of motivation.
They're just doing their job.
No, they're not just doing their job.
And they came here and testified because they received a subpoena to do so.
Because they're covering their ass.
The same is true with DFACS. They weren't.
Your Honor, I would object to any mention of the DFACS investigation since it has, of course, been ruled irrelevant.
Are you addressing the testimony presented by DFACS?
Talking about testimony that was presented by the workers.
Right. Okay. I'm going to allow it. Go ahead.
And Your Honor,
wait, what's the difference? What is the difference, Your Honor, between the testimony of the workers and DFACS? There is none.
And she's going to continue her objection.
Because we were not allowed to present testimony from DFACS workers.
She'll only be allowed to argue and comment on the testimony that was here in the courtroom.
Just want to make sure the record is complete, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
The same is true with DFACS.
What a
They didn't
that
just
judge is a
randomly
bitch.
take
I'm sorry.
These people's children away. They heard the reports of the doctors. They spoke to the defendants. Something didn't match.
No one ever talked to Matt.
The child. The child was removed from the home.
Child was removed from the hospital, not the home. They never went to the home.
And the defendants testified. Ladies and gentlemen, the defendants have every reason to lie. They are the ones sitting in trial.
Like you don't to cover your ass, like you don't, like the prosecution doesn't have every reason to lie too, because if you lose this case, you look like a jerk. You look like you don't know what you're doing. You look like you're bad at your job. The prosecution has every bit as much reason to lie than anybody else. And I'm sick of hearing that prosecutors don't lie, the cops don't lie. Everybody lies. Everybody lies.
Matt and Tucky did an amazing job on the stand, by the way. They both took the stand and could not have done better. I'm so proud of them. They did a beautiful job with their testimony.
I bet they did. I mean, we interviewed Matt here on this channel and it was heartbreaking, and you could tell how much pain this man was in. And there's no way that he was a child abuser. I'm sorry, no way. And the jury needed to see that. I'm glad they testified.
Oh, they were Tucky was excited. She was ready to go. Like, I'm ready to do this.
Good.
Facing these charges. So whether or not you believe what they say is up to you. But I would say that that is something that you can consider when judging their credibility. The same applies to their friends. Now, there's been a lot of testimony that they're good character, but ladies and gentlemen, people usually don't abuse their child in front of other people. There's a reason why these cases are hard.
And
It's
child
because it
abusers
happens
also
behind
don't take
closed
their kids to
doors.
the hospital.
And especially when it happens to a child
Idiots.
who can't talk, that is when we do have to rely on the medical evidence.
Yeah.
Because
Good
what
point.
other way is there to protect this child?
Look at her reading. Gosh.
Defense's experts. And again, I do think it's curious that they left out Dr. Krishnamurthy and Dr. Hutchison.
They didn't leave her out. They
Dr.
testified.
Krishnamurthy, she was a very sweet lady. She couldn't testify to a whole lot other than that she was very curious about a lot of these genetic variants.
She's a
lot was
geneticist.
unknown.
That's her job.
But she admitted that nothing was presenting in Emma. And really, between all of defense's experts, she was the only person that's actually had contact with Emma, that's actually laid eyes on Emma. And she did not see any genetic disorders present on Emma at the time.
That is not what she testified to.
Dr. Hutchison.
What did she testify to?
She testified to the truth. These variants of unknown significance have to be followed. We don't know enough about them. And the more information, the more people who get tested. And as time goes by, you find out, oh, wow, this call 12A1 is affecting lots of people and their bone health. They try and claim variants of unknown significance means Emma's fine. That's literally not what it means. It's unknown. They did that in the Tim's trial.
Yeah, I'm dealing with that right now. We have my kids going through genetic testing, and my mom had a finding the same sort of thing. And they try to, but it's like, just because it comes up, it's unknown, the significance is unknown, does not mean it's not wreaking havoc in some way.
Megan, if we put an unknown amount of poison in a cup of water, are you going to drink it? The amount of poison is unknown. That it shows up. It's not a negative.
It's not a negative. It shows up. It means there's something there. And all it means when they say insignificant or unknown significance is that doctors don't yet know the significance. That's all. That's all it means. It doesn't mean it's not associated with medical issues that you're having. It just means that doctors don't know it yet because doctors don't know everything.
Hey, before we finish on it, do you have to be done at 11?
Yeah, I do. I have another interview I have to do.
I want to watch this, but I want to make sure we can talk about a couple of other things real quick in Georgia.
Sure.
So if that's okay.
Yeah.
On May 12th, the day that this trial began with jury selection, Governor Brian Kemp signed a law into place. It's the second medical opinion law that we had fought so hard for. Some of the families You Are the Power reached out to, that they supported, spoke at the Capitol. And the law got passed on May 12th. Catherine tried to bring this up in closing, and it got objected to immediately. Imagine that. They don't want the jury to know about this law. So that happened.
That was changed, by the way, because of these cases.
1,000,000%. Yes. It got changed because of these cases. And, DHS Commissioner Candace Brose put in a directive on February 14th of this year telling all of her people that before they take kids away based off of child abuse pediatrician, it's equal to child abuse pediatrician, they have to go over medical records. They have to tell the parents they have a right to a second medical opinion. When the child abuse pediatricians were put on the stand for the Tims, Stephen Messer and Verena Brown said they were aware of this, but they're not following this protocol given out by DFACS because their legal department told them not to. Their legal department won't let them do it. Now, the directive was not even allowed to be brought up in the Hernandez trial. That was objected to and could not be brought up to the jury. But it was brought up because of all of these families, us reaching out to Candace, telling her how many of these families there are. So she put in her own directive. Now we have a law passed. Shelby and Damani Whiting Clark, they're a family that You Are the Power supports. If people go to youarethepower.net, they can see each family. Their children were returned to them. DFACS. Candace Brose herself had stepped in for some of these families.
Really? Now that's interesting because before it seemed like Candace was not listening.
I think she was at the Capitol when the families were there to testify. Jonathan testified that day. Tucky testified that day. Candace was there and she heard a lot of this with her own ears. I wasn't at court for the Sullivan family or the Shelby and Damani, but I was told by other people that she zoomed in on these.
Good.
And
Good.
the Sullivan family
She should be there. She should be there. It's her job to find out what her organization is doing. And I'm glad that she is. You know what? We wrote Candace, by the way. This audience wrote to Candace Brose, so she knows that people are concerned about this. So good for her that she has been paying attention and has stepped in for these families. That's great. That's
beautiful.
Great. You know what? She needs some thank you letters because that should be recognized. If she has been paying attention and stepping in where there have been inconsistencies and injustices, that's what we need.
And the reason I even know this is because these court hearings, of course, in Georgia are open to the public. And so there were people sitting in court who were able to say, hey, Candace zoomed in during that hearing. So that's how I know that.
Was she questioned at all during those hearings? Did anybody ask her anything?
I only know she spoke up during the Sullivan family court hearing, and she asked the judge what law he was citing to keep the kids from going home. And he said it wasn't a law that he was citing. It was his own his own court desire.
His own law.
Basically, yes. So the Sullivans have been reunited. They are together as a family.
God.
And
that's because of Candace Brose.
I don't know, Megan. I don't know. I've not spoken to Candace directly. I just know she did
But
get
she was
involved.
there.
She got involved. Now, Corey,
wow.
For those who don't know, Corey was arrested almost immediately when his family, this happened to them in 2023. Diana was arrested like 14 months later for the same charges, right? She was never indicted. Corey took a plea deal and sacrificed himself to get his wife's charges completely dismissed.
Oh, I hate that. He should not.
He's home with his children. There is no prison time, and everyone needs to understand Corey is 1,000% innocent of any wrongdoing.
What did he have to plead to?
It was some sort of negligence for not taking the baby to the doctor fast enough or not waking up his wife and telling his wife fast. Some load of crap.
But not abuse, negligence or something.
Yes. So there's no prison
All right,
time.
that's not bad.
He's home with
not
his
terrible.
family. I hate plea deals. I hate that they were offered. But Corey is a great man and a great husband and a great father and did what he thought he needed to do to save his family. So he's a hero in my eyes.
Sure.
Shelby and Damani. So that's all of our Georgia families that we directly.
Oh, sorry. Hold on. The stupid thing keeps.
I thought that was me. I was like, what am I doing?
No, the website keeps resetting to show commercials and then it pops us all the way to the back. It's really annoying.
You Are the Power has just announced last night that we are opening up a brand new family reunification program, and we are looking for volunteers in all states. We have so many CPS cases, Megan, that Spike and Ryan Ralston sat down and they've come up with this program because we're overrun. We can't help everyone unless we have more people coming in and changing laws like we have here in Georgia and hopefully making some changes to stop this from happening. And people need to remember a law is great. That law passed in Texas a few years ago. Families are still being torn apart there. Bad guys don't follow the laws. So it's not a fix-all. It's great to have, and parents need to know they have a right to a second medical opinion, but these doctors aren't going to tell parents that. So just because the law's there, they can still claim imminent danger, get a judge to remove a child. I mean, there's ways around these laws that they've put into place. But it's amazing because all of the Georgia families at this point are reunited. Besides Matt and Tucky, waiting for their children to get to come home.
God. All right. Well, you have to keep me updated on that for sure.
Yes.
And we have a last super chat. Unhung Hero. Thanks for the 5. Yana, everything this B has said is bullshit. Well, I have something better. I have something even better for you. Here, let's just pull up the clip, shall we? I need to add this to the soundboard. Best moment. One of the best moments.
Everything that guy just said is bullshit. Thank you.
That's exactly what there's a perfect way to end our review of the closing arguments from the state. We will come back to this on another, hopefully, maybe tomorrow morning. I think I have tomorrow morning available if you are available.
I am.
And we could finish where we left off here and then also watch the closing arguments from the defense. That I'm dying to see. And maybe in the meantime, Jennifer, you can find out when we're going to get footage to the other parts of the trials, because I would just love to start that as a series on this channel. I want to watch both of those trials, the Tim's and the Hernandez trial. But thank you so much for being here. I sure appreciate you. Please tell the Hernandez family, please tell Matt and Tucky how much we are so thrilled for them and that we will continue to follow their case and advocate if we have to have them returned to their children as soon as possible.
I will let you know if we have any call to action. People can go to youarethepower.net. Each one of our families has a fundraiser set up. These people are drowning in debt. Matt and Tucky have paid like $142,000 so far.
God.
They still owe upwards of $50,000.
This is why they need to sue the hospital. It has to happen.
Sullivans have paid over $200,000.
At this point, the facts are so horrific. There must be lawyers out there who will take it on a contingency basis, because you're talking about a multi-million-dollar lawsuit here. Radiation sickness. I mean, this is bad what the hospital has done and what DCF has done. So I hope there are lawyers out there who might consider taking this on contingency, because this case they need justice and they need to be able to have a life again. And
they need to hold these bad actors accountable. Ashley Smith, Caroline Yee, these prosecutors, Penny Penn, who walked in there almost every day just so she could see what was going on with this trial. These people, Stephen Mesner, Verena Brown, these are horrible humans and they are purposefully destroying families. So they need to be held accountable.
They do. They absolutely do. All right, everybody. That's it for us today. I will alert you guys for when we're coming back. Right now, I'm going to say I think tomorrow morning is probably good unless you have something that pops up. I believe that I am free tomorrow morning, and we will pick up where we left off and then also do defense closing arguments in the Hernandez case. But for now, the Hernandez family has been found not guilty on all counts, and we're so happy about that. Jennifer, thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you again very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I was lost, my world is near its end. Felt my head is full of a million choices. I am alive, I'm not here to pretend. I love my friends, my heart is filled with a million voices. Oh, this road has many choices. Oh, and my heart, million voices. Come next to me, my friend, embrace the sky. I'm not afraid to fly. It's not the time to say goodbye. Say goodbye. No, I don't wanna No, I don't wanna say goodbye. I know my road is near its end. I almost felt my head is full of a million choices. I am alive, I'm not here to pretend. heart is filled with a million voices. Oh, this road has many choices. In my heart, million voices. Come next to me, my friend, embrace the sky. I'm not afraid to fly. It's not the time to say goodbye.